it's great that one actual chain is building tennis clubs. We're going to open 4 this year. We're going to open about 40, 50 brand new tennis courts and 2 new clubs next year. So it's great for the sport. So that's kind of why I'm up here. What I want to do in this presentation is really, hopefully, help people become more successful with some different ideas. And I believe everything we're talking about is equally applicable for everybody in this room. So if you're a brand new tennis pro, the ideas are applicable for you and your career and apply them to your students. If you're a tennis director, I think these ideas are equally applicable for a tennis director, to employees, and to members. So I think it has a wide reach, hopefully, for everybody. So let's go ahead and start the program and kind of launch it, put it in the water. And I don't think anything really could go wrong, could it? So I don't know how this guy ever did that, but we want to start off by talking about some things that may go wrong. So for me, it really was fun. My first teaching job, even though I grew up in Minnesota, was in Hawaii. I really fell in love with that state. I go back whenever I can. So I've gone back the last 3 winters in a row. And where my wife and I really enjoy going back now is to Molokai. Because Molokai is a smaller island, only 5,000 people. There's not one stoplight. There's not only one hotel and 2 condo developments on the whole island. Because I go back to Hawaii 50 years ago. And I rented a car. So this slide shows how we walked into the car rental agency. And the whole, totally honestly, the whole terminal is half the size of this room. And this car rental office was about the size of this platform. We walked in there, and 3 years ago, as I registered for the car, my wife walked over to the soda machine and put her money in to get a pop. And 3 years ago, there was no sign, but also no pop. So she walks back to the counter and says, "Is there any pop in the machine?" And the person says, "Well, no, there isn't." We go, "Okay, guess we lost $1." That was 3 years ago. 2 years ago, we went back, and this was when the photograph was taken. There was still no pop in the machine, but now there's a sign that says, "Stop, you can't get any pop in the machine." And we went back last winter for the 3rd year in a row. So the first winter, there's no pop, no sign, and staff. The second year, there's a sign, no pop, and staff. Now, last year, there was no pop, no staff, but still a sign. So you walk in to get a car, and there's nobody there. I had a reservation, so I could see there's cars in their lot. And I walk out, and I asked someone who's cleaning a car, I said, "Where is the staff?" And he goes, "Well, they were doing such an inattentive job that they were pulled from this little office that was 40 yards from the terminal, and they made them go back and have an office in the terminal." So it's really pretty curious what happened 3 years in a row. What do I think of that? I love it. That's why I go to Molokai, because it's laid back. There's nothing going on. It's like going back 50 years in time. Molokai mo better. I really enjoy that. But when you sit in Molokai, you look across the channel, and you can see the back of Maui, and you can see the Ritz-Carlton, and you can see the Marriott, you can see the Westin, you can see the Four Seasons. That wouldn't fly on Maui, all right? So for most of us, I think, in this room, we have to start our lessons on time. We have to be in good uniform. We have to be professional. We have to have good progressions. So I think for most of us, our programs are more like what customers expect on Maui than opposed to Molokai. So what we want to do, how we're going to do this whole presentation, is I believe you have to ask the right question. And if you ask the right question, you get the right answer that puts you on the right path. If we ask a whole different set of questions, we get a whole different set of answers that put us on a whole different path. So we have to ask the right questions to get the right answers to go down the right path. And for all of us, we can be wrong in our opinions, but we can't be wrong in our facts. We have to have the right answers to the proper questions. And so what I use as a system is this right here. I've used this for years. So what I say is you have to ask a series of questions and get to the irreducible part, where you can't ask any further questions, where something can't be broken down any further, then you build a plan. So a lot of people start with strategy before clarity. And we can't do that. We have to have clarity before we have a plan to develop our strategy. So an example for tennis would be, if we ask, what's the most important thing to teach? So all of us, if we could only teach one thing and nothing else, what would that be to teach our students? So you may ask that question, someone may answer, well, it's footwork. If a person moves better, that's the most important thing to teach. Then you can ask the second question, so now I moved better, I've got to the ball sooner, what does that give me? Well, if I move better, get to the ball better, then I can have a more consistent or reliable stroke pattern. And you go, great, that answers the second question. Now, the third question is, what does a more reliable and consistent stroke pattern give you? Well, what it gives me is in every shot the ability to hit the ball at the optimal or the ideal contact point. So for me, that's the essence of tennis. If we could teach one thing and nothing else, for me, when I ask a series of 3 questions and get to the irreducible part, tennis to me is a battle of contact points. That's why all of us in this room, we're professionals. We know that tennis truly is a non-competitive sport. You all know that. Because tennis isn't a battle between Bruce and myself. Tennis is a battle of me trying to get the optimal focus on that ball so well to make that ball look so big and so slow that I get the most optimal contact point that I can direct that ball and give you the worst contact point possible. So tennis is a battle of contact points. So for me, then that's how I built my teaching system, my teaching plan. So then you build a plan. So for me, for years, I've used something called the ABCs. To me, I teach actual contact point, balance, and court position. And all my teaching builds from there. So there's just an example how we ask a series of questions. You get to the irreducible part, then you build a plan. So it's clarity before strategy. So we're going to do that with several more questions here. By the time we're done, we're going to ask the question and have an answer for it. Why would anybody hire you? Okay, or me? We're going to answer, what is the only thing that creates customer loyalty? The one thing that's been proven to create customer loyalty. What is the ultimate competitive advantage? So if you're a teaching pro, what is the only competitive advantage you have over your competition? And if you want to stay an extra 5 minutes, or extra credit, we're going to talk about one idea that will increase your lesson profits, your lesson teaching by 10% instantaneously and cut down 20% of your employee problems. Absolutely, we'll talk about that at the end. That's what we're going to do is ask a bunch of questions and come to the irreducible concept and build a plan. So the first question we're going to ask, does having a vision, again, these ideas hopefully apply to you as a professional, a frontline pro, and as a director as well. Does having a business vision or a personal vision matter? And to me the answer is yes. To have written goals, and a vision is your preferred future. Where do you prefer to be 3 and 5 and 10 years from now? So what's your preferred vision? What's your future? The statistics will show that less than 5% of people have written goals. But if you have written goals, on average, those people are 700% more successful than people that do not have written goals. So to have it clearly laid out, what is your personal vision, to me, it really does matter. Where do you want to be in the future? Because if life is perfect for all of us, what we have as our day in and day out job is a calling as opposed to a job. So there was a study done of several thousand, and I'm sorry this applies to Americans, doesn't necessarily apply to Italians or French people, but several thousand Americans took the survey, and they answered what percentage call their job a calling, a career, or a job. If you call what you do a job, what that means is you park your car in the parking lot and you come in every day to perform a task. So my task is to fold towels. My task is to check people in at the front desk. My task is to teach a forehand. So if I think what I do is to perform a task, then I have a job. If I have a career, I view that as something I think I can do 40 hours a week. It may not be that exciting and still really is doing tasks. But if someone thinks what they have is a calling, their job then has some sort of valuable purpose. So if somebody thinks their job is a calling, then they do believe they are making a worthwhile contribution to their department, to their club, to their community. And why someone thinks they are making a worthwhile contribution is because they have a series of peak experiences. They have really good feedback continually in their job. So that's why people think they have a calling. So if you have a blank spot on a piece of paper in front of you, go ahead, we'll give you 30 seconds. Future for Americans, write down, how do you think the typical American employee answered this survey? Do you think it was 33% said their life was a job, 33% said it's a career, 33% is a calling, or 88, 80, 10, 10? What do you think? Take a few minutes and write down what you think, how people view what they do for work. So when a study was completed of thousands of people, this is how the typical Americans answered. So why is this important to put up here? I think for a couple reasons. Those of you that are tennis directors, if you have a dozen tennis pros that work for you, and you have a typical cross-section of American job, what does that mean? That means maybe one or two actually are inspired, are passionate about their job, and think what they're doing is a calling. 2 or 3 are kind of perfunctory, parking their car in the parking lot and coming into work and going through the motions of teaching. But what we have in our staff is 7 or 8 or 9 pros that think they're doing a task and really are bored to death. Those are the people that you've called quit and stay. So I don't want to bank my bonus, my commission, my paycheck on having my employees look like this. So if you're a tennis director, hopefully this isn't what our staffs look like. If you're a frontline pro, the question is, if you're going to invest yourself and your time into being a tennis professional, how do we get it where what we do we believe is a calling as opposed to a task? So let's peel back another layer of the onion skin and answer that question. So like I just said here, Wharton School of Business did a lot of research and said people who experience positive meaning markers are 3 times more productive than people that don't. More peak experiences, and we'll discuss those in a minute, more meaning and more calling. And if you're an employee, you have staff, people can quit a job, but they really find it difficult to quit a cause. So what we want to talk about next is why are so many people engaged or disengaged in work? It's because they have a lack of understanding of what their job truly is. Most people really don't understand what their job function is. They think it is just a task. They don't really understand why they park their car in the parking lot and come into work. There's no lofty purpose. If I make this statement, this is a law. This is a fact, it's not an opinion. If there is no lofty purpose to your job, there will be no lasting or sustained employee commitment. It's just that simple. There has to be a lofty purpose for someone to believe what they're doing is a calling. And third, when we talk about personal values, may not be consistent with company values. We're going to make a big deal out of values in the next few minutes. So the first question is, why do people play tennis? So I'll give you 30 seconds again. On a blank sheet of paper somewhere, write down why people play tennis. We won't have any exchange, but take a minute, write down, why do you think people play tennis? It's my belief that a lot of people, especially a lot of people 2021, 2023, coming into our industry, don't understand that in sales or in tennis, people play for the benefits of tennis. Our customers do not come to play tennis. They come for the benefits that tennis gives them. That's not just a semantical discussion. That's a huge point to really understand. So why do people play tennis? They come for the variety of programs we have. They come for the exercise. We all know in tennis, it's probably the best workout a person can get in any sport. They come for special events. They may really enjoy that mixed doubles mixer on a Saturday night. They come for socializing. Someone could be new to the community, has a loved one pass away, could be lonely, you have a health problem. They come to have some social interaction. They come for the lifestyle of it, something new to try to get back in shape. Some people still love to have that sense of competition. And for me, I know it changed a lot. When I played tennis in college, for me, it was a sense of purpose and meaning. To have me on a college team, well, it was a big part of my life. In my 20s, it was for competition. In my 30s, it was for exercise. In my 40s and 50s, it was purely for abuse. The biggest joy I get out of playing now is to verbally trash talk my opponents, to take out my tennis director and abuse him the whole time. That's the biggest joy I get out of tennis now. So it may change over our careers as well. But it's a really big idea that we understand these are all the benefits of tennis. So when I was a general manager of Rochester Athletic Club for a long period of time, I did all the sales training of our staff. And I made that point really clear, that you're going to be hired as a salesperson here. The idea is you're selling the benefits of the club, not the features of the club. So we had 3 or 4 gymnasiums. You don't just point out, there's a gym. No, you point out in the gymnasium, there's socializing, there's competition. I remember one guy was a real estate agent in town. He made more real estate, got more referrals to list houses by playing basketball on Saturday morning. That way, one guy who sold the big propane tanks, people lived in out in the country. He got more sales in the Saturday morning men's mixer than anywhere else. So people play for the benefits of tennis, not for tennis itself. It's a huge idea to understand that when we're selling these ideas to our people. So one more question to ask and tie all this together is, what business are we in? If we're selling the benefits of tennis, I'll give you 30 seconds again. Write down on a blank spot somewhere on a sheet of paper, what business are you in? So to me, this is really another great point, fact to really understand what business we're in. People play tennis for the benefits of tennis. We're in the lifestyle change business. I think it's so critical for all of us. And I said before, if there is no lofty purpose, there will be no sustained employee commitment. So if you're a tennis director, it's our responsibility to make sure our staff, our desk people, the maintenance person who sweeps your clay courts, as well as the tennis professionals, it's so critical that we make them understand that people are coming here for the benefits of the game. And we're in the business of changing lifestyles. I think it'd be fun. We could probably go to the cocktail party tonight or fill this room for all day tomorrow, that we could go around and tell all the enjoyable stories we have of how we've changed lifestyles. One of the most fun letter I ever got was from a woman who wrote me when I ran a tennis program and said, I want you to know, my daughter is 15. She hates me. We don't get along. We fight. She runs around with the worst crowd of kids I can imagine. She's getting D's. That was until she joined your tennis program a few months ago. She joined your tennis program. She got good enough to make the junior varsity at the high school team. My daughter now has a whole different set of friends who are much better kids of higher character. We don't fight at all. We get along. We're pleasant with each other. And her grades are now B's instead of D's. So a story like that is why I think it's so critical. We understand that we're in the lifestyle changing business. So I think if we think we're going out there and teaching a forehand or backhand all day, to me personally, I'd go stir crazy and nuts in a short amount of time. We're here to, in a positive way, have an impact on the lifestyle of all the people. And I'll make one more point right now in this idea, is that there's been tons of research and books written on what factors create customer loyalty. And Patrick Luciani's written books on it. Gallup did a book this thick called Human Signa, did all kinds of polls. And everyone agrees there's only one factor that really does create customer loyalty. And what that is emotional connectedness. So if you want to have good member retention in all of our programs, it's our responsibility to emotionally connect with our members. And so if we can again have fun social programs they enjoy coming to, turn around the lifestyle of a student like that. So again, right now, I write a newsletter every month for the 20 clubs that I oversee for lifetime, with up to 200 pros. I make each tennis director turn into me a week before each newsletter goes out, member connectedness stories in their club. They have to turn into me actual true things that went on in their club where they're having membership connectedness. I believe in this idea so big that I really ask the tennis directors when they have staff meetings to always have the staff meetings on high and have the staff meetings where they go around and tell member connectedness stories. When we get into how we define success for a tennis lesson later on, No tennis pro would ever dream of going out and giving a lesson without bringing the cart of balls out, without bringing your racket, without wearing tennis shoes. That'd be absurd. To me, just as integral of a part of making a successful lesson is to have the antenna of the pro out all the time and have the forefront of their mind thinking, how can I help create emotional connectedness with this member? What can I do to integrate this person better in our programs? So if it's a new woman to town and she's being assimilated into our program, I'm thinking, who can I set her up with to get her in our programs? I'm sure you all do that. But to me, this is a really important concept that we understand and our staffs do, because this is the function, this is the reason we come to work, as opposed to teaching beforehand. Another reason why people can be disengaged when they work is talking about values. Values are the bedrock of anything we do. We have our personal values, and we have our business values. So when I took over that job for Lifetime, it's the very first thing I did. I was hired Monday morning. Before noon, I sent out a one-page sheet on what my values were for me as National Tennis Director and what my expectations were for them. I made that really clear right away. Because values are the priorities that govern. You have your values in your personal life. You also have the priorities that govern the business. These are non-negotiable. So I'm sure as all of you do, it's non-negotiable. We're a first-class club. I mean, you are. Lessons start on time. People look professional. We use the right balls for the right size rackets for the kids. So if we haven't done it, it's so important that we write down what are our values for our tennis department. It really is critical to do. And if we have a disagreement in values, it really will create conflict in the department. So go ahead, take a minute again, take 30 seconds, write down, what are two of your most important values, either personal or professional? What are two values that are really important to you? Take a few seconds and write it down. And while you're doing that, I didn't mention in the beginning, if anyone likes any of this presentation, when you're done, come on up, give me your business card. I will promise I will email this to you by the end of the day tomorrow. If you like these slides, you're welcome to them. Write down a couple of your most important values. What are priorities that govern your life? Why it's really important to discuss those ideas, why we want to have our own personal vision, have written goals, and really understand is because if people are disengaged, then they will not perform as well. I have a friend named Karen. I live in Minneapolis. Minneapolis has headquarters of U.S. banks. It's one of the 5 largest banks in the United States. Most people don't know that. Karen oversees 65,000 employees. And she has 10 departments that do the identical function. And during a certain quarter, one department sold $80,000 of that product. A different department sold $800,000 of that product. And there is a spectrum across 10 departments. And she said to herself, gee, I'm in charge of training, I'm in charge of productivity. Maybe I should try to really understand and figure out why one department's producing at $80,000 and one department's producing 10 times better. And when she did all of her studies, she found out the only difference was engagement of staff. So I'd like to think for all of you, if you're teaching professionals, hopefully you view your job as a calling. If you're tennis directors, it's so critical that we give our staffs lofty purposes or we'll not be as productive as we can. Next question I have, and we'll peel back the layers of the onion skin, is do we think as tennis professionals, we can motivate our students? So if I come to Bruce for a lesson, does he think he can motivate me to work harder? Do I think as a leader of a group of people, do I think I can motivate my staff? So we'll ask that question. For those of you that think you can motivate staff or students, would you please raise your hand? Okay, maybe about half. For those of you that do not think you can motivate someone, would you please raise your hand? Okay, a couple. Okay, now it's got to be 100% participation here. Everyone's got to raise your hand. Let's try that again. If you think you can motivate somebody, raise your right hand and keep it up. Keep it up. Good. Now, if you think you cannot motivate somebody, please raise your left hand and keep it up. Right-handers, keep your hand up. Raise your left hand. So good, yeah, so everybody's got their hand up. Congratulations, you're all correct. So John Emery said this was said it was really a bright group. Because the answer to this question, can we motivate staff or students, is yes, but it is impossible. That's the answer. So the real answer is, can we motivate somebody else? If you had a Jim Lair or a Bryce Young, or your sports psychologist, your PhD in psychology, every one of them absolutely would give the answer no. Because it goes back to this idea of value system again. It's such a great word to get part of our vocabularies and part of our business culture. It's because I do things. What are the values? They're the priorities that govern my action. I do things because they're important for me. They govern what I do. So no matter how much I want someone else to start a lesson on time, if that is not part of their intrinsic, their own internal value system, they will not do it. Now what I can do as a leader is I can inspire someone for a little short period of time. So because the inspiration is external. So again, if you as a pro tell Mildred to go out and say, you know what, work on their spin a little bit. If you go hit 100 serves a day for 5 days, then you'll have spin, second serve, choking is a thing of the past. You'll have a consistent second serve. And if Mildred goes out and hits 100 serves a day for 2 days, congratulations, we inspired her. But inspiration, like most of us have tried diets, kind of falls off after a little time. But if Mildred goes out for 5 days in a row and hits serves, she was internally motivated. It was her own internal value system that did it. But to me, again, that's a really key thing to answer the questions and get to the irreducible part of knowledge, is that we cannot motivate anybody else. Motivation truly comes from our own internal value system. So why is that important? How do we build a plan off of that? It's because if we want to advance our career, if you're a leader, you want to be a better leader, or you're a tennis professional and you want to be able to lead your students better, we have to understand that and understand we cannot motivate anybody else. But then what can we do? We have almost a sacred obligation as an excellent tennis professional or a good leader. Our job then, if we cannot motivate anybody else, what we can do is create a motivating climate. That's what we can do. So I've got my top 10 list up here, things I think we can do that's really a motivating climate. And I've got a couple of handouts out here. So one handout I brought is taking these 10 ideas and I put them in a lot more information. We'll hand them out when we're done. But really quick, so you'll have a lot more ideas on it. But there are concrete things we can do. And we have to talk about behaviors. Because you know, again, if you're American here, it is 100% illegal to talk about attitude. So if my pro comes in 5 minutes late, I can't say, Bob, your attitude's terrible. Because I can't get inside his head and know why he's 5 minutes late. If I talk about attitude a lot, they come back and sue me. So what I have to do is talk about behaviors. Because all behaviors are concrete, all behaviors are measurable. So when we work with our students, we work with our staff, we're talking about behaviors. We never discuss attitude. And the idea is, if you want to create the best environment, because what do we want to do? We want to hire tennis professionals that agree to your values. If you have a certain value, you want them to align to that. And if you do that, most of your problems go away. Because if you have a certain value and they agree to that, it doesn't take that much to lead that person. You're on the same page. We'll get to that a little more thoroughly in a minute. So the idea is our job is to create a motivating climate, to hire people who have the same value system and just have a motivating climate. What do we have to do? We have to make sure our mission and vision are clear. If you do not have a mission statement for your department or your club, you will have to have one. Because a mission statement is the context of the board sweeping clay courts. They punched in, and their sole responsibility, their function, was to create the best member experience they could. Member experience came first, and the whole training program went from there. And being an acronym gig, that first stood for things. Talked about finish and integrity and different things. But you have to have a real mission and vision. The values have to be clear. For me, most important value I have with my staff, I mean this very sincerely, we treat each other in a respectful and courteous fashion. It's that simple. When I had 350 employees, I fired 2 or 3 people a year. At first, it was difficult. At the end, it was water off my back. Because when they got fired, they really deserved it. And a lot of times, I fired people because they didn't treat each other in a respectful and courteous fashion. Flat out, against the value system, unacceptable behavior. So explain your values. You create trust. Trust is obviously, we know, is the foundation of any personal or business experience. And it's created through a series of experiences. So, I mean, I work with people. I have one lady who ran, at Rochester, we had a 35,000 square foot family entertainment center, big playground. A lady who ran it once, when I first would meet with her and discuss something, I could see her back hairs go up. And I would say something I thought in a neutral way, and she'd get defensive. And I'd say, you know, what's going on? She'd say, it's fine, don't worry about it. It took me about 4 or 5 months where we would discuss things and she calmed down and we could have a pleasant conversation. I said to her one day, I said, you know what? I said, when we first met, you were very defensive and antagonistic. Now, it's 5 months later, what's happened? She goes, well, I trust you now. She goes, basically, I don't trust men. Because when I was 1.5 years old, my father left my mother, a couple of my siblings. We had a really tough time growing up. She goes, I don't like guys for the most part. I don't trust them. When she got married, she invited me to the wedding, didn't invite her dad. Okay? So it takes a while to build trust. If there's no trust, you can just kiss everything else goodbye. And anything else we discussed today, or with your students, or with your staff, it's a waste of time. Provide coaching and feedback. That's really important to create a motivating climate. We don't have time to go through these in details. Involve members in team-making decisions. You know, get them involved if you can. If they haven't got a say in the decision, at least tell them why the decision was made. It's worthwhile. It's up to us to model the correct behavior. Allow them to grow professionally. Sometimes we have the finances. You can come to this convention. Some others, we have staff meetings. Get everybody involved. One person does the demo of the drill. Somebody else explains the drill. Somebody else critiques the drill. Get everybody involved. Have a clear process for conflict resolution. Tell them before it ever happens how we're going to handle it. Very important to have. Satisfy the basic human need for achievement and belonging. The only 2 things are universal in every culture in the world. One thing is we all want to love and be loved. And the other is that we all want our life to count for something. We want to feel that what we do has a sense of worth. So we already discussed that before, why as a leader, it's our responsibility to create that lofty vision for our staff. So we do things to do that. And last, let's have a little fun. Recognize, reward, and celebrate successes. We're competitive people. We chose an individual sport. We're athletes. We play tennis. If you teach professionals on your staff or your students, they're the same way. So again, from a psychological point of view, high achievers appreciate praise. They are competitive. So if we're leaders, it's foolish not to praise appropriately our students or our staff. And what will it do? It will do all of those things. And there are, again, so many things you can do to make the department fun and creative. The blue jar, I already said how much member connectedness means to me. So put a jar on a desk. Each time you go around and have a member connectedness story, have them put a marble in that jar. Once the jar is filled, take them out for pizza. If that's what your budget are, celebrate some other way. You can do things that really are fun. Thank yous. So when I ran Rochester, I would write a personal thank you at the anniversary of each person's hire date. At the birthday, their director was supposed to give them a coupon for the restaurant. So there's different things. I believe in theme of the quarter, not flavor of the day. You work on one idea for one quarter. So if member connectedness is the idea, come up with different ways, work on that for an entire quarter so it sinks in. Reward with food, party, and different people like recognition different ways. But those are all different things we can do. There's plenty of books on how to do that. But as a leader of students or staff, our job is to really create success. So what happens if this doesn't work really well? How do we solve that question? This is a definition for me of a problem. So we have a couple ideas I go over and they all will tie together. So a problem is a difference or a gap between what you expect and what you receive. So I don't care if it's a problem with a student or a staff. A problem is a difference or a gap between what you expect and what you receive. So the idea is, look at 7 minus 7. So 7 minus 7 is 0. There's no difference there. So if someone performs at a 7, and that's what your standard is, that's acceptable. So if you're saying the standard of performance is a 7, and someone gives you a 7, you want lessons to start on time. You want that desk person always to say their name, or say goodbye, or say hello to that person when they come in by name. Whatever it is, if they're giving you what you want, there's no problem, that's acceptable. But if someone is continually giving you a 4, and you want a 7, 4 minus 7 is a -3. That difference is unacceptable. So according to your value system, if you want a 7 and someone's performing at a 4, whether it's someone with disruptive behavior in a high performance class, or staff always coming late, whatever it is, that's your problem. And the concept is if someone's continually giving you a 4, you want a 7. Then we have training programs, we have one-on-ones, we work with them, and we try to bring them from a 4 to a 7. But if even prayer doesn't get them to a 7, the best you can do is a 5.5, then what do? You extract them from the system. And the reason is because their value system is different than your value system. If your value system is you want a 7, and their value system is a 5.5, I can guarantee you that leopard will never change its spots. We'll have continual problems going forward forever. It's not worth the hassle. But what happens if we have a student who really works hard? They hit 100 serves a day for 3 weeks in a row. Or an employee who's 9, they give you a 9. You're happy with the 7, they give you a 9. That's a +2. That's a value-added employee. And if someone gives you value-added service, what's that first word again? It's value. It's due to their own value system. Because someone will give value-added service for 2 reasons. It was their personal choice to go the extra mile. Because you were asking a 7, but they're giving you a 9. It's their personal choice to do more. Does that make sense? Those are the staff you look to hire. Those are the staff you really keep. That's what we're after. This applies to employees. It applies to working with unruly parents. This idea applies this problem to anything. Okay, let's shift this idea and go into what leadership and management is. So some of you are frontline pros. You want to advance your career. How do you become a department head? How do you become a leader? All right, we're working with staff. The idea is that leadership and management are 2 totally different things. So again, when I was at Rochester Athletic Club, I spent more of my time until the last 2 years really working with an organization called IRSA. So you all know we're the USPTA. That's a trade organization for tennis professionals. IRSA, International Health and Racket Sport Association, you may know, is a trade organization for club owners and managers. So there's 15,000 clubs around the world that go to IRSA conventions like we're coming here. And I had the opportunity to have a stint on their board of directors. When I was serving on the board, the executive director, some of you may know John McCarthy, he happened to retire. So I was on the board. They said, Greg, you chair the search committee. I said, fine. Wasn't a bad job. John, we had to find somebody. It paid over $400,000 a year. Wasn't a bad job. And we sent the interviews out, looked through 200 resumes, we interviewed 10 people. Since I was the chair of the committee, I always asked the first question. And the first question I asked was, you're going to be the leader of our organization, so could you please give me your thoughts and your definition of leadership? It was amazing to me. Out of those 10 people, we had 3 Harvard MBAs. We had a former congressman. Well, maybe their idea of leadership maybe isn't surprising, but we had a congressman. We had an assistant surgeon general. We had a person who was the #2 person in ARP. ARP is the largest not-for-profit organization in the world. Think it'd be leadership. When I asked that question, give us your definition of leadership, every person hemmed and hawed. Was kind of like you got to work with people and maybe you kind of have to be organized and you have to have systems. I'm going, I can't believe this. I like systems. What do I like? Ask a series of questions, get to the irreducible part, then build a plan. You have to have clarity before you can have strategy. I was surprised at that. I really was. So for me, it's so important to have clarity. What is leadership and what is management? Because they are totally different. So this is in my business, this is my company language, the terms I use. So what they are is that they both require a strategy to be successful. They both happen at the same time. Both are necessary to be excellent at what you do. And when performed well, everyone is on the same system, moves in the same direction. So they are different, but they are intertwined. My definition for leadership is achieving results with people. I think this is a great definition as a tennis pro to work with students as well. So let's, again, break each word down. Let's give a definition for each word. So achieving means there are different levels for us as tennis players. Some of us in this room could be 4 O's, could be 5 O's, could be on the pro tour, and like Fred, and ask about some of the pranks he played when he was on the pro tour at the cocktail party tonight. And it could be all different levels of play. So we could do that. But we're always after continuous improvement. So achieving means there's always different levels. So again, leadership is achieving what? Results with people. If you're by yourself, and you write a newsletter article, you can't write your mom and say, "Mom, I did a great thing. I'm a great leader. I got the newsletter article in on time." You can write your mom, but what you write her, call her and tell her is, "I'm a great manager." So if you do something by yourself, if you order the balls on time so you have enough for your tournament, or you get your newsletter article in on time, those are great self-management skills. They aren't leadership skills, because leadership has to involve at least 2 people. So what is leadership? It's influence. It's getting everyone in your area, your students or your staff, to line up behind you. And so what is the result? If success is achieving results with people, that's what leadership is. A result is your potential minus your barriers. Again, great definition to use if you're a teaching pro. So what we have to do is understand what result we're after and what's our potential and what are our barriers. So is there a potential of students to become state champ? The barrier is maybe they're 40 pounds over the weight. The barrier is maybe they play once a month. There's some barriers there. So we can produce any result if we analyze potential and look at barriers. So the result for the Saturday night mixer, the result is the potential is you want 80 people to show up. The barrier is you're holding it on the same night as the biggest football game in Alabama that night. You mean that not many people will come. So leadership is achieving results with people. A result is the potential minus the barriers. Okay, so I ask you the question, you want to go back and do something at your club. What is the one biggest barrier you face in what you do? So if you want a better result, you want a higher potential, take a second, write down on a sheet of paper somewhere, what's the biggest barrier you face if you want to go back and do something at your club? Go ahead and take a second to put it down. Again, here's another handout we can have at the end. All these ideas on leadership and management, I put them in 2 columns and explains it all on 1 page, outlines it very, very simply and very clearly, so you're welcome to take those when we're done. So where's management? Let's move on to management. Management is orderly results, orderly processes. So what management is producing, I said, orderly results, developing structure that gives clarity, efficiency, and stability. It's a clear set of tasks with staff accountable to perform them. So good management, here's the task, who performs it. And it's a clear budget process. So this is what management is all about. It's systems, it's processes. It's not achieving results with people. So it's a deductive process. So the challenge of management is continually coming up with better and better systems. So what systems do we have? So when I was a smaller club, we would order tennis balls when we needed them. When I became a larger tennis program, we would pre-order tennis balls. So I'm sure many of you do the same thing. So go pat yourself on the back. That's good management skills. So you order balls. I really was amazed kind of coming to Lifetime. They've had tennis only a few years in their corporation. So I don't think I'm saying anything disparaging. I was surprised. 150 pros, there's absolutely no onboarding system. If you're a brand new pro, they didn't tell you where to park your car. They didn't tell you where to pick up your first paycheck. When was it picked up? They didn't tell you if you had a locker, where you could stash your racket. Did you have a drawer in the office? None of that was done. There is now a 1.5-page, single-space type onboarding process. Let's have some clarity to the job. Reviews, do you have clarity for that? Cleanliness, do you have a system with your indoor courts on Monday night? Who walks around and picks up all the balls behind the curtain? Who does it on Wednesday? How do you do that? If you're an outdoor court, who picks up the trash? So I mean, who does the clipping of the weeds? So do we have processes for cleanliness, for programs? Do you ask your staff to have lesson plans? I mean, yes or no? So how detailed are those? So we can develop systems for everything. If we have a mixer on Saturday night, do you have an administrative sheet? Pre-planning, during the event, post-planning, wrap-up? Do we have systems for running events? How good are we at all that? Also, when it comes to the financial part, we may be tennis professionals, but if you want to advance your career, the language of business is financial. We have to understand how to read a balance sheet if you want to continue to advance the career. So, do you understand? Do you have KPIs, key performance indicators, for your staff as well as for financials? It's a great phrase. If it can't be measured, it can't be managed. So KPIs, do we have different financial metrics for how we do things or for programs? So that's what management is. So one thing I think is really critical, do we monitor what goes on? So do we monitor and watch? I mean, USPGA's got some great sheets, if you go to the website, on how to monitor things. I thought they were very well done. So do you monitor the pro teaching? Do we monitor standards? Do you really inspect it? Do we monitor interaction of pros with members? Because you've already said the only thing that will create customer loyalty is that member interactiveness, creating that emotional connectedness. Do we watch all that stuff? We could title this presentation, How to Make More Money. Because again, if we monitor things, monitoring increases revenues. It just does. So I really want the pros I work with teaching what I think are the right ideas and standards as opposed to on their own. So these are management systems. How do we manage it? Do we have systems to keep things under control? Last thing we're going to talk about, we have about 15 minutes left because we started late. Why would anybody hire us? Why would anybody hire you? So again, irreducible concept, the answer is why somebody would hire us is for the problems you can solve or for the opportunities you can help them seize. So a lot of people really think the purpose of a business is to make money. Nothing could be further from the truth. So that is the end point or the outcome. Just like I say, tennis is a non-competitive sport. During each point, my job is to focus so well to make that ball look so big and so slow that I get the most ideal contact point I can to generate the worst contact point back to you. If I do that well in successive points, the outcome is I win. So the purpose of a match isn't winning, it's the outcome. The purpose of a business is not to make money. It's the end point, it's the outcome or the goal. The purpose of you and your job, the purpose of your department, the purpose of your club, the purpose of a business is to stay in business, to keep your job. That's the purpose. Let's ask a series of questions. How do we do that? We stay in business by solving problems or seizing an opportunity. So what I want to do when I interview for that job, I want to study that business. I want to know what opportunities they're trying to seize. I want to know who their competition is. I want to know who what their problems are. Maybe they have a great high-performance program. Maybe it's an inadequate 10 and under. Maybe it's a great junior program, but maybe the adults aren't served well. What are their problems? What can I do to solve it for them? So someone will hire us for the problems we can solve. So now, what skills, let's peel back one more layer of the onion skin, what skills do we have to solve problems? The analogy I use is a bicycle. Because the idea of a bicycle has two wheels. What the front wheel does for a bicycle is it steers us. wheel with the chain, when you pedal, the back wheel supplies power. So in a bicycle, each wheel is critical. You can't have one wheel. Each wheel has a separate function. One steers, one supplies power. So if you have children that are going into the medical field, or a spouse who works in a grocery store, it's irrelevant. No matter what job we ever have, all of us can only bring two different skills to that job. Someone will hire us. We can advance our career by having better and better front wheel skills and back wheel skills. And front wheel skills, what steers us through our job is our interpersonal communication skills. How we communicate with other people. What powers us through our job is our task skills and our task knowledge. So for this conference, some handouts are on the website, and I have a whole sheet I put on there that lists about 20 different front wheel skills and 20 different back wheel skills. Sometimes you can go on there and circle your strengths and areas you may want to improve. But really quickly, we have to have both of those type of skills. Okay, a bicycle must be balanced. So interpersonal skills, what are some of those? How well do I write? How well do I listen? How well do I present to a group? Some people may be very comfortable up here. Some people could be scared to death. Maybe you feel comfortable in small groups presenting as opposed to large groups. Social styles. If you want to stay for a few minutes after, because we'll end on time, if you have never studied social skills, I don't have time to take 5 minutes and go over it. I will promise you, if you understand social styles, without a doubt, you'll improve your lesson production by 10%. You'll eliminate 20% of your employment problems. Absolutely. You want to stay 5 minutes after. What I say as a boss, or a pro with students, you have to create the climate. How good is that? Maybe you were great with creating trust. Maybe it's out of the comfort zone to resolve conflict. For me, when I was a general manager, the hardest thing in the beginning was conflict resolution. Couldn't handle having discipline somebody. After I've done it hundreds of times, like I said, it's easy now. So what are some of those different things? And then, big part of interpersonal communication skills are nonverbals. Especially if you're a frontline pro, nonverbal communication is so critical. Or if you're training frontline staff. So nonverbals, we know, are what? Dress, presentation, when you give a lesson, proximity of space, how close you come to somebody. If you really want someone to think you're affirming them, you're listening, you're paying attention, what they say is really important. The two most powerful forms of nonverbal are nodding and good eye contact. You know all that. All right, so there's a whole bunch of different nonverbal communication skills that we have. If we stand with our arms open, do I stand this way or straight out? Am I closed? Am I open? All those are nonverbal. Then there's tone and words. So, again, we'll give you 30 seconds. Write down how you think as human beings. When you talk to your boss, when you give a lesson, when your best friend talks to you, how do we communicate with each other as people? Do you think it's 33 1/3, 33 1/3, 33 1/3%, or it's 95.5? Take a second in a blank space somewhere on your sheet of paper. Write down how you think on 7% words. It really isn't critical to debate the numbers. The key thing to get out of this is by far the most powerful form of communication is nonverbal. I've hired hundreds of people. I can guarantee you, I make up my decision in the first 20 seconds whether I want to continue to have a meaningful conversation to hire that person or whether I don't want this person part of my team. And most of us do the nonverbals. You heard that phrase? You don't get a second chance at a first impression? That's because in the first 30 seconds, 80% of communication is nonverbal. And there's even people that have this 7-11 principle, that in the first 7 seconds, people are making 11 judgments about you due to nonverbals. Chew on that at the cocktail party tonight. Okay? So that's how we communicate with people. All right? So it's really important. If you have front desk people that work for you or pros, nonverbal is really critical. So when you're going for that next job to improve yourself, we really think about nonverbals a lot. Task skills, those are back wheel. Do we know how to understand management information systems or a computer? Are you good with Excel? Are you good with Word? Are you good with PowerPoint? Do you know how to do those? You want to advance the career? Learn those different systems. Financial, again. The financial systems are the language of a business. A person cannot advance unless they can read a balance sheet and those type of ideas. Administrative. Are you good at following through on tasks? People are really misunderstand and think if they have poor organizational skills, that's the problem. It's not organizational skills, it's lack of prioritizing. So if someone says, I should take a time management course, waste of money. It's not time management, it's priority management. Finish one idea and move on to the next one. So, and then tennis specific, do you know how to string? Are you good with high performance? Are you good with 10 and under? All those different ideas. Those are the task skills. And the idea is, you can't fix a tire like this. Someone can't say, give me my next job. I have great back wheel skills. I understand tasks well, but I'm a jerk. All right? Somebody else can't say, I'm the most pleasant person you'll ever hire, but I really kind of am incompetent and I'm not any good at off-court skills at all. We can't say that. For a bicycle to function well, we have to have both wheels that are full and both wheels that are the same size. So one idea is look at that handout again and look at all these different things. If we have the time to improve one skill a year, think in 5 years from now how much more marketable we would be. Okay? And then we really want to define success for a lesson, a director, a professional. You have those things lined up. Last 2 slides is that, so factors for success, how do we advance our career as an individual? The 3 H's, help. I can't tell you the number of people that say they got their job due to networking. I can spend the next 15 minutes saying that to you about myself. It's been unbelievably helpful. So while you're here, exchange business cards, talk to people. The networking is so critical. The second is history. What front wheel and back wheel skills do you have? Where are my deficiencies? What skills should I develop that I'm much more marketable? If you can't write, take some writing courses, and you can do the newsletter. So it's history. It's hard work. Prove to somebody that you follow through in your hard work. What really is that? That's personal integrity and character. Without a doubt, good employers, the number one thing they hire for is personal character and integrity. And then for a leader, if you're in a leadership position, the number one way you can measure your success as a leader is what does the staff do when you're absent from the club? Okay? If the cat's away, how do the mice play? We said leadership was having a staff, what? Share the same values, align behind you. So if their values are the same as yours, they will perform the way you want them to due to their value system, not due to you necessarily as a great leader. So this couldn't be a better phrase to burn into your memory if you're a leader, is that a team, if you want to be a successful leader, is a team that's aligned and skilled and informed, absolutely, without a doubt, 100% guaranteed, will produce the results you're being held accountable for as a leader. So align means what? They have to share the same values. If this is your value and this is their value, what's our definition? That's a problem. Extract them from the system if their values aren't the same as yours. Okay, they have to be aligned. Second, they have to be skilled. What are their front wheel skills? What are their back wheel skills? What training do we have to do to get them to be more skilled? And third, inform. You can't over-communicate as a leader. What are your communication tools? Newsletters, flyers on your bulletin board, that type of stuff. You will get the results. So thanks for your time. We're talking about the difference here of all these different things. Last point is, what's the ultimate competitive advantage? We know what is the one thing that will create member loyalty, the ultimate competitive advantage. The only thing that can differentiate what we do from anybody else is us. Everyone has a court that's 78 feet long. Everybody can buy red and yellow balls. But what cannot be duplicated is the value system, the front and back wheel skills, the leadership, the hard work that you produce. That's the ultimate competitive advantage, is the right person in the right job. So I'm saying congratulations to all of you. Welcome on what you do. If there's one thing I tell you to do, to get one idea from this lecture or somewhere else, is before you leave by the end of the day tomorrow or Monday, write down 1 or 2 things that you will absolutely 100% do before you get back. Because once you get back to where you go, whack-a-mole happens, right? This thing comes up again, this and this and that. So get 1 or 2 ideas you're absolutely can do before you go back home to implement, or things fall by the wayside. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.